April meeting. How's everybody doing? My name is Jovina Johnson, president of the Journal Square Community Association. I just want to welcome everybody this fine day and thank you for joining. So we're going to start out with, first of all, the March meeting minutes. They were included in the newsletter, so we're just going to say they're approved by unanimous consent. And if you're a member and you object to anything in the minutes as they stand, please email hello@jsqca.com within the next 24 hours with your notes. We are streaming on Facebook Live, but we're also on Twitter and YouTube, and comments are accepted. Comments, questions. We look forward to everybody's participation this morning. We're going to go to the treasurer's report, and I just want to get that out there real quick. We have 84 members right now. In the general account, we have $3,028.20. The Bergen Archers have $29,745.03, and Bergen Square has $54,85.33 for a total of $38,258.56. So that's that. So today we have joining us Helena Muhammad, the Community Partner Coordinator for the Jersey City Employment and Training Program, and Rebecca Symes, Director of the Waterfront Project, who will be speaking on tenant rights. So I'd like to welcome Helena to the stage. She's going to talk about all the benefits of the Jersey City Employment and Training Program and then take Q&A. Good morning, Helena. How are you?
Good morning, and thank you so much for having us. Jersey City is a great hub with a large, diverse population. In Jersey City Training and Employment, we plan to make sure that this community is served via training, stable employment opportunities. Our long-term mission has always been to help get the community back to work through outreach services, workshops, people who have some concerns about COVID at this time. We offer various virtual services, which includes a virtual orientation presentation, virtual job readiness, as well as a partners. For those of you who might be interested in partnering with our agency, I would be more than welcome to give you our partners orientation. I'm going to put my contact information up at the end. The JSQCA program, it provides resources to adults, youth, dislocated workers to obtain training and necessary skills to obtain employment. Currently, we are involved in a lot of training aspects. You have a lot of individuals who've been dislocated. We have dislocated worker funding that we're trying to assist people with getting back into the workforce. I feel strongly that a lot of people have skill sets that their tools may need sharpening. So some of these training programs are designed to support skill sets that people already have. Certain things in medical billing and coding, they become outdated. We have a medical billing and coding program. We have a lot of the construction workers came through our office and indicated that they need riveting. Ms. Muhammad's not sure what riveting is, but I know it's an important component to construction with all of these large buildings going up. Our mission, like I said, has always been to get the community back into the workforce through personal outreach services. We provide extensive workshops in the job readiness career development field to assist with resume building, constructing contact information, reports, all kinds of stuff to help you get back into the workforce. Reference letters, reference documents. This year, we're also going to again host the Summer Youth Employment Program, which is very interesting. Please visit the Jersey City Training and Employment website. There's applications there for people who are interested in making sure that our youth get some employment. That goes for guidance counselors from the high school, from community organizations, the Boys and Girls Club. All of those people are welcome. So dislocated workers seems to be a big part of what's going on nowadays. So it's very important that the community has had concerns and issues about the Jersey City Training Employment Office at 398 MLK. For years, it's been a concern of the community that they didn't feel like the community was able to utilize the services here. We have become diverse. We are open. It's not limited to, in the past, it was known as the reentry office. This is Jersey City Employment and Training. All are welcome, 18 to 24. Valid IDs are required and a social security card to start the initial paperwork. The phases that you're going to go through is an orientation. That's 30 minutes to an hour. We have three in-person orientations on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. They start at 9:30. On Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2 p.m., you can utilize the virtual orientation. Initially, you will have to come into the office and provide your ID and social security card and fill out 2 documents, and that's it. And then all the other services are virtual. If you need help with your resume, we have a virtual job readiness instructor. We use Ring Central. You'll be able to see the screen, get walked through the resume process, the reference letter process, as well as a cover letter. So let's see, Jersey City Employment Training. We also have an on-site recruiter. We're currently working with a COVID-9 project to get medical people with basic medical knowledge. We're assisting with setting up the COVID-9 testing and vaccine sites. So we're trying to help them staff those sites. We just had a site run at Hudson County on yesterday in regards to setting up for a job fair for the American Dream Mall. We have some very, very interesting hospital and hotel employment available currently. So here's the hit. People don't know what's going on with us anymore. I'm here to tell you that we're here functioning 398. We're following all the COVID-9 protocols. You can feel safe and comfortable when you come to Jersey City Employment. Must wear a mask to regain entry to our office. So I know Ms. Muhammad was kind of speedy. I'm more interested in seeing what you guys want to hear about Jersey City Employment that I might have skipped. A very diverse team. You don't even have to worry if you're bilingual. You're more than welcome here. We have bilingual counselors. Our counseling staff consists of an orientation presenter, job readiness, job recruiter, vocational training coordinator. Any questions for me?
Yes, we have a question coming in from a viewer. They want to, I guess, know a little more detail about your interview practice sessions, if that's part of the training.
Absolutely. Excuse me. Absolutely. So there's a whole 3 slides on mock interviewing. You're asked a question. There's role playing that's included. Most of the time, if people are ready to go out for a job, they tend to get a little over nervous. Ms. Muhammad has the 3 secret keys to a best interview. How long, what you can do, and who you are. People tend to think that when you're asked, tell me about yourself, you should tell your whole detailed history. You can feel 100% comfortable that the guidance that you get here to do the interview practice is thorough. Oh, Mr. Bill, that's you, I see. I'm looking at the screen now, so I do see questions. Bill, just bilingual and English at this time. As a matter of fact, our bilingual person speaks a little Portuguese. Mitch, not all the job openings that are available are listed on the website. However, most of the training flyers are on the website. There are some, but not all. has a committee focused on homeless. What do you guys have in place to work with home? So currently we're just doing outsourced referrals. We don't do any housing. Our primary focus here is training and employment. However, we have lists in the front of our office that we keep. We've done some research. All of us pitched in on that. We did research and we formulated fact sheets about what pantries are open, what shelters are open, what housing is available. And if you're specific in what your need is when you come here, we have those resources to give you these listings of places that assist with various things from clothing, food pantry, health, and homelessness. Oh, Mr. Bing. It will be Mr. Christopher Dunn. At the end of this presentation, I'm going to put my contact information up for you, and I will make sure that he reaches out to you before the week is out. Bill, I do believe it's Spanish, and I don't want to quote on Hindu. We do have a young lady that works in our office, but I can't give you an answer on that, but I will get back to you if I get your information. How can we help spread the word about your businesses? Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, V Prince. So we plan in the very near future to have a open house. We have flyers, and the best way right now is Facebook and the Jersey City website. It's information about everything we have going on. The summer youth employment application is actually on there. There are flyers about the training services that we currently have available. But please take my contact information, and I will make sure that you get included in a partner's orientation. Bill. So, Mandar, the jobs and skills that are, what we do is we research in-demand jobs so that we are currently involved with training programs that support the skill sets for the in-demand jobs. So currently the greatest in-demand employment venues are CDL driving and medical assistance. However, we have a lot of hotel and hospitality partners that our job recruiter is working with currently at this time. Oh, I'm trying to check out. Do you have interview practice sessions? Yes, are there? Mr. Mitch, you did see, if you go to our website, you also see that there are job openings for qualified people with positions here at JSQCA also. So I think I have answered all the questions that I have on the other side. So I'm going to quickly put up the slide to show my contact information, I hope. Can everyone see that? You also need to know that we work very closely. We work in conjunction with the Jersey City One Stop, the Hudson County One Stop office that's located on Summit Avenue.
Hi, Ms. Muhammad, I had a question.
Yes.
Hi. So I volunteered there like a few months back. I think it was maybe the summer, the fall. So I just, if you could just tell people how they could do that if they want to. I had a pleasure of sitting with the I think it was the youth participants and taking them through resume and interview. So if they want to volunteer, how can they Are you also still the contact for that?
Yes, we certainly are. So with the COVID, Javina, I'd love for you to come out and see how they blessed our office. It's now petitioned in the room where we were sitting at that time. It's petitioned. The summer youth employment orientation now is also going to be virtual. However, if there's anyone who wants to volunteer, they could come in and utilize the computer here or from their home and give a presentation to the group. I'll just set them up on Ring Central, because we're not really having people in the, we don't have large groups over 8 at a time in the office. Thus far, our summer youth employment group this year is pretty larger. Yep. But just I'll put my contact information up again before I depart, and please make sure that you reach out to us. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have another question from Bill about Cdl training.
So do you actually offer the driver training? So Bill, this is the thing. We don't do it on site. We vendor out. We have a very good vendor. As a matter of fact, Ronaldo Santiago, he's our person who goes out to each training site to make sure it's a good training site, and that whatever training is being provided is a good credentialed training. And he was just saying how nice the CDL yard looked. They have some new trucks and stuff in the CDL yard. We don't do any of those trainings here on site. They are vendored out to specific vendors that have been went out, researched, recognized, and will give our consumers good credentials. So that should be a well-kept secret, the number of people we have in our summer youth employment program. I think at the current time, I don't want to say, and I'll tell you why, Bill. We don't want people to think there's anything unfair going on. It's just that last year we got the contract in the very end of August, and we were held to task to have the children working by September the 8th. And we were held to task to get 75 youth. And most of these internships were in the park. We had several businesses, and the youth were they were 18 to 24. Because of the pandemic, the schools weren't open, and we weren't able to get working papers for 16 to 17-year-olds. And we had to step it up and get that contract filled quickly. So I would say we have an average of 150 applicants at this time. How many of them are going to actually be hired? I'm not sure, but the orientation for them starts on Monday, and there are 25 in the morning orientation and 25 in the afternoon orientation, and they will all be virtual. Training cost is not listed on the website, but we're assisting people with getting into training with no cost to them. The services here at JSQCA are fee-free. When we get you a job, we're not charging you. You get into a training program, if you qualify, there is a process for training. There's a CASA, a general assessment test, that requires that you can at least pass the reading and the math at a 9th grade level. That's only partial eligibility. There are eligibility documents that are going to be required at that time, and those are all discussed in detail in the orientation presentation. Most people go through this process smoothly. Orientation, testing with the CASTA, eligibility and testing are usually done on the same day. Job readiness, career development, your resume is scanned, your cover letter or a statement letter indicating how this particular training would support your efforts to stabilize your employment background, job recruiter or vocational trainer. So we're talking a week. And then depending, and specifically with the CDL, depending on what time this, on what days or weeks or what cycle the CDL training is, most trainings get started right away. Soon as the biggest issue that we've had several people who did not have high school diplomas from the United States, and getting them translated might have took them a little longer. But other than that, the trainings are 1, 2, 3. So, but there is no cost to our constituents at all. Good morning, Mr. Pino. So, Mr. Williams, your question is it income based? Some of the documents required for eligibility do require information about your income. It's based on the individual and what specific training. At this time, I'm looking, we have healthcare, Bill, healthcare, hospitality, hotel industry, security, SORA, commercial driving, construction. Those are the primary trainings we're offering at this time. I will follow up with Miss Escovedo on Monday to see if they have solar paneling at this time. Mr. Williams, the time framing for range for the trainings is going to vary on what the training is. So medical might be a little longer. I live on Mr. Pino, I live on Tunley Avenue, right by the Tunnel Circle. That has a long time with the homeless population in this. Mr. Pino, I can't assist you with that issue with the homeless problem. However, I think once a month the mayor does have a community meeting. Maybe you can get your question answered better in the community meeting. I apologize, I'm not able to answer that or assist you with that issue with the homeless. Mandar, I absolutely have seen a large shift in employment venues. A lot of people, I find, are asking me if we have any employment in the hotel and hospitality industry. CDL has exploded over the roof. I have every other man or woman that comes in here wants to get a CDL license. I give them some very candid advice in regards to total career change. We have a website that I'm not going to mention, because if I give you all the milk, nobody is going to want to buy the cow. Where we have a self-assessment website we send individuals to so they can assess what is appropriate based on the skill set they already have. We don't want to deter or not support anyone's efforts to get back into the workforce, but we would like individuals to get the services that are best for them. Mr. Pena, you're welcome. Bill, I'll try to get you an answer about solar paneling on Monday. So please make sure that you take my email address. I'm going to put it up one more time. Any questions that weren't answered to your liking, please feel free to email me, and I will guarantee you by Monday before the close of business day, you will have your answers. On Mondays from 10 to 11, I'm doing a virtual orientation. So if I don't respond to you between 9 and 11, I will definitely respond to you at lunchtime. Mandar, we don't actually facilitate internships for construction workers. However, we're currently working with 2 new partners who have construction sites, so hopefully that's something we'll be able to do in the near future. Anyone else? Don't leave me now. I'm just getting warmed up. Okay.
Mohammed, it looks like we got some great engagement here from all of our members. Oh, okay. Now we have another question. Perfect.
Oh. You work with the trade unions. So I would call that an unfair question. If I answered it yes, you would want to know which ones, Joe, and I'm not privy to that information, but yes, we do. What could lead into any diplomas? I'm not quite clear on what you're saying, Mandar, in regards to what could lead to any diplomas. Do you offer any training into any diplomas?
Maybe they mean certificate training, like
all the training vendors that we currently are involved with have to provide certificates of not just completion of knowledge of. That's part of how Mr. Santiago went out and selected trainers for us. They must provide a certificate of completion and knowledge of, and that's how they get their money. And you know something, Mandar, I'm glad you said that. You just reminded me something. Not only do we have training grant dollars, we also have tuition waivers for people who are working on continuing education. So we also provide tuition waivers for continuing education. Hudson County Community College. I know several consumers who go to Rutgers, and we provided them with tuition waivers for continued education. I am not sure on all the eligibility criteria for the waivers or the training. However, when you go to the orientation, those things are all thoroughly explained. Yes, it is, Bill. That's our website. Oh, this is great. I'll do this every month for you if you'd like, Javina. People don't ask questions, and I just a FYI, we're here. We're open daily. We do have in-person contact, but we try to keep it very limited. So if you're comfortable with having a face-to-face and talking to someone, we have plexiglass up. We wear masks. Please come by and ask the questions. I think that at this time, I'm going to be quiet after this. JSIP is underutilized. The community had all of these complaints and concerns. We're here. Please use what's in your community. We're here to help. And thank you so much, Javina.
No, we really appreciate your time. We do have another question regarding your work with trade schools, if any.
So what Pacific trade, Mandor, because that's a broad spectrum, trade-wise. What Pacific trade could you be interested in, or are you asking for someone else? You gotta give me a little more Pacific, because trades, we got riveting, we got flagging, we have the medical assistant, we got phlebotomy. There's a whole bunch of things that go under these, a whole bunch of subtitles under these main titles. So was there a Pacific trade? You're welcome, Mr. Prince. V might be a male or female. I apologize. Mandar, was there a Pacific trade? Bill, there is I'm not, I can't, I've seen the contract for the plumbing. I don't know if they came on board with us, but there is an electrical vendor that we're working with for electricals training. If the person's collecting unemployment, how will this Sonia, this will not affect your unemployment at all. As a matter of fact, this might be a good time for you to come down and see about our services, because we're working heavily right now with our dislocated worker grant. So a lot of the people that are on unemployment are like, I don't want to say priority, but based on their income, that makes their eligibility more likely for some of the training programs we have now. The dislocated worker funds, let's not let them go to waste. And unemployment is going to run out pretty soon. So come, please. That's Sonia. No pursuit right now, though. Thanks a lot. Mandor, I really appreciate you. And make sure you give them the website information, and this way they can get firsthand information. Mr. Weller, yes, we do. Actually, we're in the process. They're on my Wednesday list of partner orientation to see if they would like to partner with us. Female, Miss V, thank you. You helped me out. Any more questions?
Okay. It looks like, you've been able to answer a number of questions and really get the name out there. And this is so just timely and relevant for our situation right now. So I really appreciate your time this morning.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm looking forward to hearing the doctor.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. So for now, right now, we're going to introduce Rebecca Symes with the Waterfront project, and they're going to, talk about tenants' rights. So good morning, Rebecca. You there? We need to check your sound real quick.
How about that? Can you hear me now?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you so very much, Jovina, for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I'm going to share my screen. I have a little PowerPoint presentation that I would like to share with everyone. So hi everyone, my name is Rebecca Symes. I'm the Executive Director of the Waterfront Project. We are a free legal services nonprofit and HUD certified housing counseling agency, and we focus primarily on preventing evictions and foreclosures here in Hudson County. And our office is actually located right in the Journal Square neighborhood. We're on 830 Bergen Avenue. So I'm particularly excited to be speaking with you guys as members of our very local community. So there are three things that I want to make sure that everyone listening to this presentation knows by the time we leave. So if you don't hear anything else and you don't take away anything, these are the top three things. The first is that in the state of New Jersey, the only person who can tell a tenant that they have to leave their home is a housing court judge. So no matter what your landlord sends you in the mail or tells you in person, the landlord can't just decide you have to leave and can change the locks and kick you out. That is not allowed in the state of New Jersey. The number two thing I want you to take away is that most tenants in the state of New Jersey have a lifelong right to an ongoing tenancy, unless they fail to pay their rent or they break some other rules of their lease. But most tenants, even if your year-long lease has expired, you have a right to stay on as a tenant. And then number three, which is COVID-19 specific, is that because of the eviction moratorium right now, most tenants cannot be evicted, even if they don't pay their rent, no matter how much they may owe. There is an exception to this that I'm going to get into, but most tenants cannot be evicted right now because of the eviction moratorium. Let's dive into that eviction moratorium a little bit more. So most people may have heard about this already. It's in the news a lot, but basically back more than a year ago now, Governor Phil Murphy created Executive Order 106 suspending evictions. So what that means is a moratorium is basically, a temporary ban, and it says that no tenants can be evicted from their apartments while the ban is in place. Now, there is an exception to this moratorium, and it's rare, but if there's a true emergency, if a landlord can show that the tenant is causing harm in terms of like an immediate threat to the life, health, or safety of other tenants or the landlord, then the tenant may be evicted. But it's important to know that the eviction moratorium does not halt court proceedings. So landlords can still file eviction lawsuits, but the ban prevents the lockouts or the removals. For now, the court system has suspended all eviction trials, but there is still court happening in the sense that landlords can file court cases against tenants. Tenants are being served with those summons and complaints. And there's even virtual landlord-tenant mediation and settlement conferences that are happening. And of course, like emergency hearings if there's the landlord alleges that the tenant is threatening the life, health, or safety of people. Everyone should know that the eviction moratorium is set to last until 60 days after the end of the COVID-19 health crisis. So since March of 2020, every month the governor has extended the public health emergency. And he did that most recently on March 18th. And so that means that there can be no evictions until June 15th of 2021. Now, it's anticipated that he will likely extend it another 30 days next month, but of course, we don't know for sure. There's some other protections for tenants during COVID-19 that are special. This one has to do with security deposits. Governor Murphy has created a rule that allows tenants to apply their security deposit to any past due rent. This was quite helpful in the beginning when we didn't quite know how long this public health emergency was going to last. It's still helpful. It's useful to bring down the total arrears if someone has been out of work for many months. But the tenants will be required to pay back that security deposit at some point, either 6 months after the end of the public health emergency or the lease renewal date, whichever is later. Of course, tenants are still liable for any damage they cause to the apartment. There's also some local tenant protections through related to COVID-19. Jersey City's City Council unanimously passed a new ordinance that prohibits any rent increases during COVID-19 and even prohibits late fees. This is set to last 6 months from the end of the public health emergency, or when it's, or 6 months from the date that the ordinance was passed, which happened in March, or when the state of emergency is lifted, whichever is sooner. There's also some local COVID-19 rental assistance programs. Jersey City's had round one completed. They're preparing for round two. Tenants can sort of sign up to get updates about when round two will reopen, but we expect it will open soon. But currently the Hudson County Rental Relief Program is open, and there's a statewide lottery rental assistance program that's open. There's also Jersey City's invested in expanded free legal services and housing counseling. So if people are having trouble falling behind in their rent, there's a lot of services available for free, largely, without for households of any income. If you want to know more about what programs there are available, there's a statewide website, which is www.housinghelpnj.org. This just launched this week, and one of the exciting things about it is the state has invested in an alternative program for or to avoid the housing court system where landlords and tenants can mediate their disputes. This is particularly helpful for tenants who've fallen behind and want to kind of avoid the landlord filing a court case against them. They could invite their landlord to participate in mediation. So I highly recommend this new program. This is also a website where you can find information about rental assistance, even foreclosure prevention for landlords. And it's really for both landlords and tenants. It's a great website and I highly recommend it. So I just want to talk briefly about eviction in general in New Jersey. And New Jersey in some ways is very tenant friendly, and the Anti-Eviction Act is one of the ways that it's tenant friendly. Now you'll remember I said there were 3 things I wanted you to learn from this presentation. The first is that the only person in the state of New Jersey who can tell you to leave your apartment is a housing court judge. The second was that most tenants have a right to a renewal lease. Even if their lease is expired, they have a right to remain in their apartment so long as they pay their rent and they don't break the other terms of their lease. And that right it comes from the Anti-Eviction Act. So in New Jersey, landlords have to have a reason to evict a tenant. And that has to be one of the reasons that are listed in this law called the Anti-Eviction Act. You can't get rid of a tenant or fail to renew a lease unless you have a reason. There is one major exception, and that is it doesn't apply to tenants who live in buildings with 3 or fewer apartments where the landlord lives in one of the apartments. So if your landlord is your neighbor and you live in a 1, 2, or 3 family home, you can be evicted for any or no reason at the conclusion of your lease term. But for most tenants, this is a really great protection, and it shows that the state legislature wants people to stay in their homes, stay in their communities for the long term. So this is actually a really wonderful protection for tenants, and it's quite rare. Not a lot of states have this. And these are the 19 grounds for eviction under the Anti-Eviction Act. I'm not going to read through them all, but the ones that are most frequent are the ones that most people, whether they're lawyers, tenants, or landlords, are aware of, which essentially is not paying you rent, disorderly conduct, causing a nuisance for your neighbors. That's things like playing loud music or having a party or leaving your trash in the hallways, damaging or destructing your landlord's property. This includes improvements to the property. I find sometimes people will do things like install a ceiling fan or something like that. Technically, you can't make any changes to your apartment without the landlord's permission. So that's how that one comes up a lot. And then other ways, violating the rules and the regulations in the lease, or having unauthorized people living in the apartment. I'm not going to go through all of them, but those are the most common ones. And of course, these protections were in place before COVID. They're certainly in place right now, and they'll be in place after COVID. So really, tenants, as long as they abide by their responsibilities under the lease, they're going to be protected and allowed to remain in their apartments. Now, one of the things I mentioned is that during COVID-19, I have a question coming in. So Trevor asked a great question. He asked whether the exception to the right to remain has to do with whether the landlord lives in the building and it's 3 or 4 units, or in either scenario. Great question, Trevor. It has to be both. So if you live in a 3-family building, but your landlord is not one of your neighbors, then the Anti-Eviction Act applies to you. And the exception, again, the exception doesn't apply to buildings bigger than 3 units. So rent control, this is a protection whether you live in a rent control building or not. It has to do with the number of apartments. And thanks, Bill, for adding the website, housinghelpnj.org. I appreciate it. And it's a brand new website, so I'm still learning it myself. But yeah, so the Anti-Eviction Act applies to all apartments except for those that are owner occupied and 3 or fewer units. So one of the third thing of the three things I wanted you to know was that most tenants during COVID-19 can't be evicted unless the rare exception applies, which is where a court finds that the tenant is causing a direct threat to the life, health, or safety of other tenants or the landlord themselves. But I mentioned that the moratorium doesn't mean that court isn't happening. And in fact, what we're definitely seeing in court is that tenants who are being sued in housing court are being requested to do court mediation. And so what this means is the tenant will receive the eviction summons and complaint in the mail, just like they would before COVID. And the court, it won't have a date to come to court, of course, because court is closed temporarily and eviction trials are suspended. But it will instruct the tenant to contact the court system. And what we have found is whether the tenant contacts the court system or not, court officials will contact the tenant eventually. And they invite the tenant and the landlord to participate in a mediation. The mediation is facilitated by a member, someone who's employed by the court. They have special training to be a mediator, and the mediation will occur either by phone or video conference. So something to know about this virtual mediation process is that it's not mandatory. During normal times before COVID-19, every tenant who went to housing court was required to do mediation. And that mediation happened on the first day that you went to court. And it happened in the court before you get to see the judge. This virtual mediation is not in place of that mandatory mediation. It's our understanding that mandatory mediation will occur in the future when cases are back in court. This virtual mediation is, in a way, an attempt by the court system to help the parties come to some sort of agreement that will resolve the matter during this sort of lag time while court really isn't happening. And if the tenant declines to do mediation, or if they participate in mediation but they can't come to an agreement with their landlord, there's no penalty, there's no negative implication for not settling the case. It's just that the matter will be adjourned for a future date when courts are open, and you'll get a chance to mediate then and then have your trial. Something else to note is that during these mediations, tenants are allowed to have their attorneys participate. And we recommend absolutely that tenants should seek out free legal representation. Most people, especially if you're unemployed, you're going to qualify for free legal services. So why not get a lawyer to help you through this process? There are more free lawyers available for tenants now in Hudson County than ever before in our whole history. And it's not just our organization. There's the Community Health Law Project and also Northeast New Jersey Legal Services. So there are free lawyers out there, so you don't have to go through the process alone. And I'm going to drill down a little bit on mediation, because this is right now, because the courts are closed, the one way that tenants might inadvertently negatively impact their own sort of situation with their landlord. So I have a couple tips. Of course, this isn't legal advice, it's just information that I'm sharing. But the first and foremost, if you're going to go to mediation, you should definitely get a lawyer. I know I said that in the last slide, but it's worth repeating. There are free legal services available more now than ever before, so definitely get a lawyer to participate with you. If you do participate in mediation, you've got to think about whether coming to agreement is really the best case scenario for the tenant. You want to make sure that the tenant recognizes that at this point in time, because of the governor's moratorium, even if they're not paying rent, they can stay in their apartment. And that's because we've decided, the governor has decided as a policy, because of this health crisis, it's more important that we avoid people becoming homeless or leaving their household It's more important that we avoid that because we don't want more people to get the virus or spread the virus. So it's more important that people stay where they are. So tenants shouldn't necessarily agree to leave. And another reason that we don't want tenants to agree to leave is that there are many resources available at this time for COVID-19 rental assistance. So for tenants who are falling behind, there's actually help available, and we want to make sure that they seek out that help to try to get their back rent paid rather than agreeing to leave an apartment. Because what we see is when people leave their neighborhoods, especially in Jersey City, and even especially in Journal Square, where the rents are going up, the reality is that once they leave that apartment, it's unlikely that they're going to find a similarly available apartment in their neighborhood. So we don't want to see widespread displacement of our long-term community members because they went to a mediation and it just agreed to go. And the other thing is we don't want people agreeing to a payment plan, like, oh, I'm going to pay an extra $500 per month for 6 months to catch up, if you can't really realistically afford that payment plan. Again, there's help out there. And one of the things some of you may be wondering is, why would a tenant go to mediation and agree to a payment plan that they can't afford or agree just to give up their apartment? And really what we're seeing is a lot of people who've lost income due to COVID-19. This is the first time they've fallen behind on their rent. And they feel deep guilt and shame about it. And so sometimes they act not in their own best interest because of that guilt and shame. And of course, I know as a long-term tenant advocate, I've been working as a lawyer for almost more than 15 years, and more than half of that as a tenant advocate, is that, that guilt and shame is misplaced. COVID-19 happened, and it was really unprecedented, and the economic insecurity that people are facing is really through no fault of their own. And so, we want to make sure that our long-term tenants are taking advantage of all the extra protections and resources that are out there to them to avoid their displacement. So I see a question that's very specific to the Waterfront project, so I'll answer that in a moment. I just want to summarize that the 3 things I want everyone to take away from this project, from this presentation, is that a housing court judge is the only person who can tell someone to leave their home, that most tenants have a lifelong right to an ongoing lease unless they fail to pay their rent or, break their lease in any other ways. Of course, the exception is owner-occupied 3 families. And then COVID-19 protections mean that most tenants cannot be evicted even if they don't pay their rent. So my cell phone and my email address are here on this last slide for you. And Russell, I see your email. They can definitely, it sounds like there might have been some confusion. You don't have to have been served documents or legal documents to get help from a housing counselor in our organization. So why don't you just refer them directly to me? I'd be happy to reach out to them. You can share with them my cell phone number or my email address, which is there on the question. But Russell's question was basically, he said someone had called the Waterfront project because their utilities are being shut off, and that they all have to leave because of construction in the building. This may be a building that we're already aware of. We're already working with some tenants in the building, but regardless, just if anyone has any issues, please direct them, straight to me. I'm happy to help. I feel like everyone in Jersey City has my cell phone number at this point, so I'm just happy to give it out. I'm embracing that. So Russell, please do refer people to us. And I'm happy to take any other questions. And if there aren't any, people should feel free to share our information. We're happy to help. Mandar had asked a good question about there's a state bill proposal to give renters 30 months to make back payments before they are evicted, even after the 6 days in the emergency, the end of the declaration of public health emergency. This bill is still working its way through the state legislature. There's actually some really exciting potential changes to tenant protections that are coming. And at the end of the day, I'm quite hopeful that we will see some positive things happening in the state legislature. I talked a lot about the governor's moratorium. As many of you know, there's even a federal law moratorium. I don't even bother talking about it because our state of New Jersey moratorium is so much better than the federal moratorium. And I have faith that our state elected officials are going to get some more tenant protections passed. Senator Stack, who represents parts of Jersey City, has been a real advocate for tenants. And to the extent that you want to learn more or support his efforts, I definitely encourage you to reach out to his office, even just to say thank you for the work that he's doing on behalf of tenants. I see that Shane has asked, how can we help get the word out to renters who might not know about the Waterfront project or other tenant resources? This is always a struggle. It's probably a very important question for the moment that we're having, because those COVID-19 rental relief funds that I keep mentioning, they are limited in scope. While they're larger than any sort of financial effort that we've seen in the past, they will run out. There is not enough for everyone. And they really are allocated on sort of a first come, first serve basis. So to the extent that everyone can use their social media networks and their professional networks and their neighborhood networks to spread the word, if nothing else, that people should be applying for COVID-19 rental assistance now. Don't wait to get sued. Don't wait till you're in housing court. Apply as soon as possible. That's very helpful. We have a sad showing on our social media at the Waterfront Project, to be honest, but we do post about this stuff pretty frequently. So to the extent that you can share those things with your networks, we'd appreciate it. Both Kevin and Joe had asked about rent control buildings, and many people live in rent control buildings in Jersey City and aren't aware of this. This is actually one of the major frustrations that we have when we try to enforce rent control buildings, in terms of tenants will live in a rent control building for many years, not realize that be overcharged for many, many years, and we can't recover those funds because, or not all of the funds that they're owed, because they've waited too long to sort of assert their claim against the landlord. The best way to figure out if you live in a rent control building is if you live in a building that has 6 or more units and it's old, you probably live in a rent control building. So if you live in a building that was built, before the 70s, really, but really thinking about like pre-war and before, you absolutely live in a rent control building. There are some exceptions to that, and new construction is accepted from rent control. But if you live in a big old building, you probably live in a rent control building. You can find out very easily if you suspect that you do by contacting the Jersey City's Office of Rent Control, and they can tell you straight away. Or you can come to the Waterfront Project. We have a rent control practice. We have an attorney who most of what she does is rent control. And we've gotten back tens of thousands of dollars for tenants who've been illegally overcharged. I live on Duncan Avenue, just to the south of the Journal Square neighborhood. And we have a lot of rent control buildings on our block, and a lot of people being overcharged. So it's worth looking into. So Bill had asked whether we expect a flood of eviction notices after the pandemic ends. Yes. We are bracing for an increase. What's interesting is, at the Waterfront Project, we've helped over 1,000 households this year, from March to March, basically the pandemic year. And those are largely people who have not been sued in housing court. These are tenants who are falling behind and sort of affirmatively seeking help and trying to figure out what their rights and responsibilities are in this new world of COVID-19. But we know that a lot of landlords are actually not filing cases right now because they don't really see the point, because housing court's not open. So we anticipate a huge influx in cases, and also that there will be a very big backlog of cases, because there's a lot of cases that have been filed that aren't yet being adjudicated. So yeah, there's going to be a flood. And most experts have it's either a flood or a tsunami or an avalanche, but yes, lots of eviction filings coming. Mark asked whether it's better to go to the Waterfront Project than Hudson County Legal Services for tenant landlord matters. So there's Northeast New Jersey Legal Services provides free legal help. The Community Health Law Project provides free legal help for people living with disabilities, and the Waterfront Project provides free legal help for tenants. I think they're all offer high quality legal services, and so we're all three of us are working together to shoulder the burden of all the cases that are coming, and I think they all offer great services. The Waterfront Project has 3 attorneys on staff now. We're actually hiring a new attorney right now, so we'll soon have 4. And we anticipate hiring more as more grant funding becomes available. I mentioned that we're getting more government funding than ever before, which is really exciting. Nasiri asked, is a rent-controlled property with an owner living in the building still evicted tenant under the major exception? So a rent-controlled building has 6 or more units. So there'll never be an owner-occupied rent-controlled building. So if you live in a rent-controlled building and the owner lives in it, that doesn't matter because there's 6 or more units. So, I see I got a neighbor on Duncan Avenue. That's great. So I think the thing to think about, though, in terms of spreading the word, is making sure that that tenants realize there's help. A lot of people have, their social networks have shrunk. They're not leaving their homes. They're maybe working from home, or maybe they're not working anymore. And we just need help trying to reach all those people, because the window for getting the help that people need is going to close. And what we saw after the global financial crisis in 2008 is that the majority of evictions and foreclosures that happened didn't happen in 2009, and they didn't happen in 2010. They happened in 2011. That's when we saw the big spike. And that's because, there's assistance directly during the aftermath of a big crisis, but then that assistance starts to wane, and then it's not there anymore. So it's really important that we reach out to our most vulnerable neighbors now to connect them with the resources that are available now. And in terms of services that we offer outside of legally representing tenants, we have we have 3 HUD certified housing counselors on staff who offer one-on-one counseling on financial matters like credit repair and budgeting and getting prepared to maybe pay down some debt or to buy a house. We do one-on-one housing counseling. So this is any issue that comes up that's not housing court. So if you have conditions in your apartment in need of repair, or you have a question about your lease renewal, you want to know if the rent that's being offered on your lease renewal is legal or not. So anything that's sort of outside of court, a housing counselor can help with. And then of course, we also do foreclosure prevention counseling. So for those people who own their own homes, who may have had an issue with their income this year and are falling behind, we have a HUD certified housing counselor. He's been doing foreclosure prevention counseling for close to 20 years. He's a real expert in his field. He's available to speak with homeowners. And then we also have a senior wills project, which was on hiatus, but is because of COVID-19, but is now just restarting, which we're really excited about, where we do wills and end-of-life documents like powers of attorney for seniors living in Hudson County. And then so there's the Community Health Law Project. Bill had asked, what are the organizations besides the Waterfront Project that offer free legal services? So those are Northeast New Jersey Legal Services and the Community Health Law Project. All 3 of us are part of a multi-million-dollar grant to provide free legal services for the next 3 years in Hudson County. So we're all working together, and I think you'll get quality representation from any of them. Nasiri had asked whether we have an attorney in our team that handles rent control litigation. We do, and we are the only nonprofit that I know of who does rent control litigation, and we've had great success with it. And the rent control, if you live in a rent control building, you really have an opportunity to affirmatively assert your rights at the before the rent control board. So it can be really empowering for tenants as opposed to like participating in the housing court system. You guys are asking such great questions. I'm really excited. This is a really great way to spend a Saturday morning. I appreciate your time. And again, I guess the only thing, I used to run a neighborhood. I used to live in downtown Jersey City, and I ran a neighborhood. I was president of my neighborhood association downtown. And I will say that, the work that you guys are doing by, hosting these meetings and participating in them and spreading the word really is one of the most important tools that we have as a community to fight displacement of our more vulnerable residents, whether those are homeowners who are struggling or tenants. So, I'm just really grateful to the work that you guys are doing. And if there aren't any more questions, I've gone 3 minutes over my allotted 30-minute presentation time. So I will cede the microphone to Jovina. But thanks again for having me. And again, my people are welcome. I'll put my my email and my cell phone number in the chat. But I'm here. We're part of the neighborhood. We're located in the neighborhood. So we're excited to partner with you guys.
We really appreciate your time this morning, Rebecca. We strive to just give all of our members and everyone really relevant, useful information, and you definitely helped us with that cause. So, yeah, just thanks. And thank you, Mandar, for putting up the site and providing your contact information and being open to address the concerns of Jersey City. So, with that, we're going to segue into our announcements. So I just wanted to let everybody know in terms of any upcoming events. Today, there is a Stop Asian Hate JC is holding a rally at City Hall today at 2 p.m. Our next meeting is May 8th. And our newsletter stated that we hope to have some guests to speak on, transportation issues. So in terms of our committees, the CAB committee meeting, which was supposed to be Wednesday, had to be rescheduled. So there's going to be a special meeting Monday, April 6th at 6:30, and they're going to discuss Homestead Place, the pedestrian streetscape design with the developer. Also, the monthly May meeting on May 5th will be at 6:30, and they're going to talk about the a subgroup of the CAB committee, the Affordable Housing Working Group. They're going to talk about their preliminary research findings and discuss potential next steps. With the intention of this group is to find ways to generate more affordable housing units in Journal Square. For the History Committee, reminder, Bergen Square Day is October 23rd. Those wishing to volunteer in any capacity can email history@jsqca.com with Bergen Square Day in the subject. And anybody looking to participate as a vendor with a table can register at bergensquareday.com. There's a presentation hosted by the History Committee. It's going to be Jersey City's African Burial Ground with Jerome Choice, Tuesday, April 13th at 7 p.m. via Zoom. If you're interested, email history@jsqca.com with the subject African Burial Ground to receive the Zoom meeting info. For our Green Committee, the next meeting is April 21st at 7 p.m. We'll have speakers from 2 community solar companies. Attendees will learn how to save on their electric bill while also getting solar-powered electricity without having to install solar panels. Homeowners and tenants can sign up for these services, and if you're not on our Green Committee list, email the committee chair at billarmbrewster@comcast.net. Want to announce one more time about the vaccine window opening for residents 16 and older on April 19th, and we have 6 vaccination sites at the Mary McLeod Bethune Community Center, the Maureen Collier Senior Center, the Joseph Conyers Senior Center, the Marin Light Rail Station, PS26, and Ferris. And you can schedule an appointment by calling the appointment call center at 201-373-2316, and it's open 7 days a week from 9 to 5. The Hudson County COVID vaccine registration site is hudsonregional.org, and the state of Jersey City also has a number to schedule vaccine appointments at 855-568-0545 And the state COVID vaccine registration website is covidvaccine.nj.gov. And our Communications Outreach Committee meeting is Wednesday, April 14th at 7:30 p.m. And I just want to remind everybody, if you're interested in joining the JSQCA and you want to attend fabulous, relevant meetings like this, you can check us out at JSQCA.com. That is it for now. Also, somebody wanted me to announce that Councilman Saleh said there are Pfizer shots available in the Heights. So I do want to thank everybody for sharing a bit of their morning with us. And I do definitely want to thank our guests one more time, Rebecca Symes at the Waterfront Project and Helena Muhammad at the Jersey City Employment and Training Program. And I wish everybody a great weekend. Thanks, guys. Bye.